Russia, Russian Federation, is the world's largest country, spanning Eastern Europe and Northern Asia. With a long and complex history, Russia plays an important role in many international affairs. Here is a brief overview of Russia's economic, cultural, and political situation. Economy. Natural resources. Russia is one of the world's richest countries in natural resources, especially oil, natural gas, coal, and metals. Russia is the world's leading exporter of natural gas and one of the world's largest producers of oil. The Russian economy is heavily dependent on the export of these resources, especially energy, industry and agriculture. Russia has a developed industrial base with heavy industries such as metallurgy, chemicals, and defense. In addition, Russia also has a large agricultural sector, with major products such as wheat, barley, potatoes, and vegetables. Economic difficulties. Russia has experienced economic turmoil since the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. The transition to a market economy has led to the rise of oligarchs and widespread corruption. Economic sanctions from the West, especially following Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014 and the conflict in Ukraine, have put significant pressure on the Russian economy, causing periods of recession and inflation. Currency. The Russian ruble, rub, is the country's official currency, and its value is often affected by global economic conditions, especially oil prices. Culture. Cultural diversity. Russia is a culturally diverse country with over 190 different ethnic groups. Russian culture is a blend of Eastern European, Eurasian traditions, and many ethnic minorities. As a result, Russia has a rich culture with a rich heritage of art, music, literature, and architecture. Arts and literature. Russia has a world-renowned literary tradition, with writers such as Lev Tolstoy, Fyodor Dostoevsky, and Anton Chekhov. Theatrical arts, especially ballet and opera, are also an important part of Russia's cultural heritage, with famous theaters such as the Bolshoi in Moscow and the Mariinsky in St. Petersburg. Religion. The official religion of Russia is Eastern Orthodoxy, and the Russian Orthodox Church has a profound influence on the country's culture and history. However, Russia also has many other religions, such as Islam, Buddhism, and Judaism, due to its ethnic and regional diversity. Language. Russian is the official and widely spoken language. In addition, many other minority languages are also spoken in different regions. Politics. Political system. Russia is a semi-presidential federal republic. The president is the head of state and has great power, while the prime minister is the head of government. Currently, Vladimir Putin is the president of Russia, having held the position since 2000, except for the period 2008 to 2012 when Dmitry Medvedev was president. Putin has consolidated power and ruled with a tough style, aiming to maintain tight control at home and strengthen Russia's position on the international stage. International relations. Russia plays an important role in international affairs and is one of the 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. However, relations between Russia and the West, especially the United States and the European Union, have deteriorated significantly in recent years, especially following events related to Ukraine, Syria, and allegations of election interference. Russia also maintains good relations with many countries in Central Asia and China, while trying to expand its influence in Africa and Latin America. Opposition and democratic freedoms. Russia's internal political situation is often criticized for its lack of democratic freedoms. Critics say the Russian government suppresses the opposition, controls the media, and restricts personal freedoms. Many opposition activists, such as Alexei Navalny, have been arrested or pressured by the government. Current situation. Ukraine conflict. Since 2014, the conflict between Russia and Ukraine has become an international flashpoint. Russia's annexation of Crimea and support for separatist forces in eastern Ukraine have caused a major crisis in Russia-West relations. In particular, in 2022, Russia launched a military campaign in Ukraine, causing a serious war and increasing Russia's international isolation. Sanctions. Russia has been hit by numerous sanctions from the US, EU, and other countries due to its war in Ukraine and other issues. This has weakened the Russian economy, But the country has managed to cope by expanding its economic ties with Asian countries such as China and India. Russia is a country with great influence in terms of history, politics, and culture. However, Russia is currently facing many economic and political challenges. While trying to maintain its role in the international arena, Russia's future development will depend largely on how it resolves its internal problems and its relations with the international community. Russian civilization has a rich and complex history spanning a millennium, shaped by its geography, diverse ethnic groups, political regimes, and encounters with various cultures and empires. Here's a historical overview from the early beginnings to the present. Kievan Rus, 9th–13th century, formation. Russian civilization began with the rise of the Kievan Rus in the 9th century. A federation of Slavic tribes and Viking, Varangian, rulers. Centered around Kyiv, modern-day Ukraine. Prince Rurik is traditionally considered the founder of this state. Christianization. In 988, Prince Vladimir the Great converted to Eastern Orthodox Christianity, marking a significant religious and cultural shift that deeply influenced Russian identity. The Orthodox Church became a central institution in Russian society. Decline. By the 12th century, the Kievan Rus began to fragment due to internal strife and external pressures. The Mongol invasion in the early 13th century, 1237 to 1240, led to the fall of Kiev, and Russia entered a period of subjugation under the Mongol Empire. Known as the Mongol Yoke, Mongol rule and rise of Muscovy, 13th–15th century, Mongol domination, for about 250 years. Russian principalities were vassals to the Mongol Golden Horde. They paid tribute but retained local autonomy. This period allowed for the rise of the Grand Duchy of Moscow, Muscovy, as a central power. Rise of Moscow. By the late 14th century, Moscow grew in power under leaders like Dmitry Donskoy, who defeated the Mongols in the Battle of Kulikovo, 1380. Moscow gradually became the center of resistance against Mongol rule. Ivan III, the Great, in 1480. Ivan III officially threw off the Mongol yoke, consolidating Russian lands and declaring Moscow the successor to the Byzantine Empire after the fall of Constantinople in 1453. He adopted the title, Tsar, and laid the foundations for an autocratic state. The Tsardom of Russia, 16th–17th century. Ivan IV, the Terrible, in 1547. Ivan IV crowned himself the first Tsar of Russia. His reign marked the centralization of power, expansion into Siberia, and significant cultural developments. However, his later years were characterized by harsh repression, secret police, the Oprichnina, and brutal purges. Time of troubles, 1598 to 1613, following Ivan IV's death and the extinction of his dynasty. Russia descended into a period of political chaos. Foreign intervention, from Poland and Sweden, famine, and internal strife. This period ended with the establishment of the Romanov dynasty in 1613. The Romanov dynasty and the Russian Empire, 17th, early 20th century. Peter the Great, 1682 to 1725. One of Russia's most transformative rulers. Peter I modernized the Russian state, military, and society along Western European lines. He founded St. Petersburg in 1703, making it the capital and a window to the West. Catherine the Great, 1762 to 1796. Catherine expanded Russian territory, promoted the arts, and implemented various reforms. Her reign marked Russia's emergence as a great European power, especially after victories against the Ottoman Empire. 19th century. Russia's expansion continued into Central Asia and the Caucasus. However, internal pressures, such as serfdom, economic backwardness, and growing political radicalism, began to destabilize the empire. The defeat in the Crimean War, 1853 to 1856, exposed the empire's weaknesses, leading to reform, including the emancipation of the serfs by Alexander II in 1861. Revolutionary movements. By the late 19th century, growing discontent among workers, peasants, and intellectuals gave rise to revolutionary movements, including the Marxist-inspired Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, the Russian Revolution in Soviet Union, 1917 to 1991, Revolution of 1917. The February Revolution of 1917 led to the abdication of Tsar Nicholas II, marking the end of the Romanov dynasty and the Russian Empire. A provisional government was established but failed to address key issues like land reform and Russia's participation in World War I. Bolshevik Revolution, in October 1917. The Bolsheviks, led by Lenin, seized power, initiated a period of civil war, 1917 to 1922, between the Red, Bolsheviks, and White, anti-Bolshevik factions. The Bolsheviks emerged victorious, and the Soviet Union was established in 1922. Stalin era, 1924 to 1953, following Lenin's death in 1924. Joseph Stalin became the leader of the Soviet Union. His rule was marked by rapid industrialization, collectivization of agriculture, widespread purges, and the establishment of a totalitarian regime. World War II, known as the Great Patriotic War in Russia, devastated the country. But the Soviet Union emerged as a superpower. Cold War, 1947 to 1991, after World War II. The Soviet Union and the United States entered a protracted geopolitical struggle. Known as the Cold War, the USSR expanded its influence over Eastern Europe and competed with the West in arms, space technology, and ideology. Internally, the Soviet state remained authoritarian, though Khrushchev's de-Stalinization campaign in the 1950s sought to reduce some of Stalin's excesses. Collapse of the USSR, 1991, economic stagnation, political corruption, and nationalistic movements led to the weakening of the Soviet Union. Mikhail Gorbachev's policies of perestroika, restructuring, and glasnost, openness, in the 1980s aimed to reform the system but unintentionally hastened its collapse. In 1991, the Soviet Union dissolved, and the Russian Federation was born. Post-Soviet Russia, 1991 present, Yeltsin era, 1991 to 1999, Boris Yeltsin became the first president of post-Soviet Russia. His tenure was marked by economic turmoil, rapid privatization, and the rise of oligarchs. Russia faces significant challenges, including the Chechen wars and political instability. Putin era, 2000 present, Vladimir Putin became president in 2000 and has remained a dominant figure in Russian politics since. His rule has been marked by efforts to reassert Russia as a global power, centralize political control, and manage economic recovery, aided by high oil prices in the early 2000s. However, his tenure has also seen growing authoritarianism, suppression of dissent, and strained relations with the West, particularly after Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014 and involvement in conflicts like the Syrian civil war and the 2022 invasion of Ukraine. Challenges and prospects. Contemporary Russia faces a range of challenges, including economic sanctions, demographic decline, political opposition, and regional instability. The war in Ukraine has brought severe international isolation, with the conflict reshaping Russia's geopolitical position and future trajectory. Conclusion. From its beginnings as the Kievan Rus, through the rise of the Russian Empire, the Soviet Union, and modern Russia, Russian civilization has undergone significant transformations. The country has played a pivotal role in global history and continues to be a major actor on the world stage, although it remains set by internal and external challenges. That's all the history of Russian civilization from the past to the present. From people, economy, culture, politics that I have provided to you. Hopefully it will help you understand more about this country. Thank you and see you in the next video.